So I will call the meeting to order at 3:31, 1 minute late. And I see we have Jim Long, Sue Ann Shore, Jim DeMark, Nancy Natali, myself, Terry Gaffney, and Al Miller from Darien 2020. Do I have everybody who's present?
That's everybody I see.
Okay. So we still cannot approve the minutes from the previous two meetings. But does anybody have any comments, changes that they would recommend so that when we do review them, I can get those changes in?
No.
No.
Okay.
I just have a question.
Yeah, Nancy has a
On the
question.
commission staffing, it's saying, still looking for residents to serve on the committee.
Yes.
I volunteered someone and,
The question is, are we still looking for volunteers, whether or not they reduce us to 9? And the answer is yes, we are.
because she was told no. And she went through the
By
whole
whom?
process. Who was the guy in charge of the Darien Democratic?
David Bain?
David Bain told her no, they weren't taking any new people.
Okay, well, I'll send an email to David. Thank you.
Because, she went through the whole process of putting in her application and all that stuff, and she was all set to go to Jamie's office, and he told her no.
Okay, so I don't know if you all can hear Nancy or
I'm
not.
sorry, should I be louder?
No. But apparently there's some miscommunication at the entry level about receiving applicants. So I will clarify with both the RTC and the DTC to make sure they're on board that we're still looking.
Democrat, because I know you said you were light on Democrats.
Yes, correct.
There's no question about the RTC. We realize that we still need people on the MNC. And if the lady that from the Darien, from the DTC wants to come over to the RTC, we'd be delighted to accept her.
Yeah, the only challenge there,
No,
Jim,
She would never do that, no.
the only challenge there is because of the convolutions of fair and balanced government, we need more Dems.
Okay.
Okay, so moving on, chairman report. I noticed today when I went over the Norotan Avenue overpass that the wind got the better of that flag yesterday. So I went downstairs before the meeting to procure a new flag, which I will get up on the overpass tomorrow. I just want to again make note that last month I asked that all members of the commission make some time to go out and look at the various monuments around town. Hopefully you've all done that, because the most effective way of finding out if a monument is in need of repair, frankly, is with one of us noticing it and bringing it to our attention rather, oh, look at that, one picture.
I didn't do that. I didn't know.
Who did you get?
I got myself, the big deal.
Oh, okay. I must say you're still blank on ours.
Okay, well, that's probably a good thing, because despite all of my pleas, my wife has yet to cut my hair since the first of the year, so. And I haven't dyed my hair in 40 years, so, so the commission staffing, the RTM approved our request to go from 15 to 9. So now it goes in front of the town council, because for it to be legally reduced from 15 to 9, it requires the charter of the commission to be amended by town council. So I don't anticipate that's going to take anything other than time. I assume that by next month that we will be legitimately a 9-member commission, which should alleviate our stress of getting a quorum. Budget. The chair notes that the commission currently has monies available in this year's budget for all 3 categories that we have Aegeus over. We have our ceremony budget, we have our maintenance budget, and we have the separate cemetery maintenance budget. And there are monies available in all three. It is hopeful that we will not have too many repair expenses this year beyond the cemetery repair. And I bring that up because while there is enough money in the cemetery maintenance budget to address our immediate needs, Jim DeMarc and John King know full well that all we've done is scratch the surface on what needs to be done to stave off disaster. So we'll get to that when we hit the cemetery subcommittee report, but I just want to make everyone on the commission aware that there are monies available in this year's budget still.
Jerry, what was the first item? Repairs?
Well, the first item is for ceremonies. So
Oh, ceremony. Okay.
yeah, and we'll get into that in a bit. The second category is repair of, which while it's not completely specific, it's meant for repair of monuments. I don't think we'll be breaking any financial strictures if those monies are available and we use them, for example, of repair of stone walls, signage, or actual tombstones in cemeteries. I will ask for clarification on that. I don't want to get spanked. But I suspect that we would be okay to use those monies in that regard if, in fact, we can find use for it, and I'm sure we can.
And I assume it's like any other budget. If you don't use it by the end of the fiscal year, it evaporates.
Correct. And, you know, in years past, Jim, we have had some considerable monument repair expenses that strictly on monuments, not just on cemetery work. So there's a reason that budget is there. So again, that comes down to my asking everyone to take the tour of the monuments, take a look at them, and see if any of them are in need of attention. Okay, moving on to Memorial Day Parade. I continue to be apprehensive that state-imposed restrictions may preclude us from having a full-blown Memorial Day Parade. Having said that, we are continuing with the plans to have a full-blown parade. We have continued to work on the behind-the-scenes preparations that are required to make it happen. The only things that have been delayed at this point, I have not contacted the press nor the individual organizations that typically participate. I normally would have done that a week and a half ago, but since we don't know what's going to happen because of COVID, I don't want to create a froth amongst those interested in participating and then have to shoot them down at a later date. So I don't think that we're going to lose much, if anything, by delaying that. And you know, if I were smarter than I am, I would have realized and done what I'm about to say. What I will do is I'll send an email out to all those organizations telling them that tentatively we're planning on having the parade and that they should stand by and hold their breath and wait. And let's just pray that with all the improvement of vaccinations, that maybe we will get clearance, although I'm not sanguine that's going to happen. Having said that, our largest task still remains to identify a grand marshal and a speaker, because whether or not we have a full-blown Memorial Day parade, we will in fact absolutely have the ceremony at the cemetery afterwards. We can comply with the state imposed restrictions on that. So we absolutely will have the ceremony at the cemetery, at the Veterans Cemetery. So we will absolutely need a speaker. And if the parade as we know it cannot be orchestrated, I expect that we will be able to do what we did last year, which is to have a severely truncated parade, in which case we would be looking to have a grand marshal as well. I do have two names that I can share privately with the commissioners. I don't want to put the names out in the public. I don't think that's fair to the prospective candidates because, you know, we'll have to vet them, and I don't want to put names out and then not pick them. So I would ask anybody who's got some ideas or some names, please forward them to me. And what I will do is I will identify the candidates as candidate A, candidate B, candidate C, etc. And when we have our conversations in public, that's how we will refer to them. Again, to reiterate, the Grand Marshal must be a veteran. The keynote speaker must be a veteran and must have some, in addition to serving the country, must have some service qualification to the town of Darien. So the Grand Marshal, two things: service to country, service to community. The keynote speaker need not be a veteran, so that would be preferable. The keynote speaker actually does not have to be a resident of the town of Darien, does not necessarily have to have a connection to the town of Darien. The keynote speaker has to be somebody who has the ability to speak to the concept of Memorial Day Parade and tie it into how we in town observe Memorial Day. So you can think outside the box on the keynote speaker. Any questions on Memorial Day Parade? Okay, so moving along. Cemetery Subcommittee. Jim, do you want to talk about it, or do you want me to continue gabbing?
Well,
Why don't you take over and give my throat a rest?
how do you want me to handle the discussion that the previous discussion that we've had in terms of the pricing? I have talked with the gentleman that owns Family Landscape, and I asked him, which he's done, to adjust the quote that he gave us for, I guess it's Waterbury 2. But do you want to talk about the rest of this, or how do you want to handle this?
All right, so I didn't know that you were either Irish or Jewish or both, because when I ask a question, you answer with a question. And by the way, in these politically charged times, that's not a slur. You know, it's the Irishman when is asked, "How come you always answer a question with a question?" He says, "Do I?" And the Jewish man answers it by saying, "Why not?"
It's okay. I don't take any offense on being Irish. So to answer my question, do you want me
Okay, so I'll answer your question. We received a quote from Family Landscaping Business, who did the cleanup work on the Roten River Cemetery and did it ably and at a very attractive price, and did so with the care and tenderness that we ask of him. And thank you to Becky Siciliano and Tracy Root for reminding us about the parameters of how the properties are to be handled in terms of no heavy equipment on the property, et cetera, and to really take great care, because in quite a few of these cemeteries, there's been some movement underground, so to speak, and we don't actually know where all of the graves are, because when gravestones get knocked down, you have to be mindful that you may actually be standing on or working on a grave site. So thank you to Becky and Tracy for reminding us of that.
Did we send them a thank you?
I just did.
Oh, are they listening?
I hope so. Nancy asked if we sent them a thank you. I said we just did. So we've gotten a quote from Family Landscaping Business on 6 of the cemeteries that the town has voluntarily taken responsibility for maintaining. And the quote was, to my eye, again, very attractive. And Mario, who owns the business, is mindful of the strictures in terms of the equipment used and how it's to be handled. So I am of a mind to give Mario the go-ahead based on the work that he's outlined on these 6 cemeteries, which includes a complete cleanup so that he can get to the mowing and weeding. So how does that sit with everybody else?
Terry, there's 7. It's, we probably thought it was only 6 because, you know, one is across the road from the other, but there's 7 of them, okay?
And, you know, I'm just noting, is Rob Hulick on the call?
I
No,
don't think he's here.
Okay, so Jim, do you know, last month he mentioned he had a contact who does some cemetery restoration work. Have you gotten together with him?
He is, Rob's company owns a monuments and ceremony company that they have an office. One of the offices in Norwalk. And, you know, to be very frank and honest with you, I wanted to get this settled in terms of cleaning it up.
Yeah.
And, you know, now hopefully we're going to make a decision on doing that. Then what I'd like to do is have Rob, John King, and I get with one of his people and go over to the cemetery down near the Norotan River Cemetery and start with that, and then go from there.
Okay. All right. So I'm looking for a motion from the floor for someone to say they would like us to approve the quote to get the work done on these cemeteries so we can get started. We do have monies in the budget to handle it. So,
I'm happy to make, Terry, I'm happy to make the motion that we proceed in accordance with the quote. Question I have is, do we have enough people to vote on it? Because you said we didn't have a quorum.
Yeah, I don't know that this is something that requires a quorum.
A vote? Yeah, it probably
Yeah.
doesn't. I mean, I'd like you to go ahead and get it done.
So
I
let
said-
me rephrase it.
Yes.
Instead of a motion, is there anybody who has an issue with it?
No,
With us getting
no.
work started? Okay. All right, next, Wartime Veterans Street Sign Program.
Okay, Terry, one more thing.
Yes, go
Sorry
ahead.
for interrupting. I mentioned to Al that Doug Drugo, who was the superintendent of the grounds at Weburn, and has basically, he and the general manager said, listen, whatever you guys want to get done, we'll take care of it. So I said that I'll send Al and Doug Drugo an email, and Al can pick it up with Doug Drugo and let him know what he needs.
All right, I was going to actually bring that up under Darien 2020, but we can talk about that. We can talk about that now.
Okay, the only reason why I brought it up is because it's cemeteries. Okay.
Thanks a
All
lot,
right, so
Jim.
let's
I really
let's
appreciate
flip
that.
it. Let's
we
flip
may-
into Darien 2020 before we do Wartime Street Veterans Program.
Okay.
Al, take it away.
So Jim, I'd like to thank you for reaching out to Mr. Drugo. That's a load off my mind because there's really no parking at that cemetery, and we were talking with the police about how to handle, any parking and stuff like that. So I'll contact Mr. Drugo and ask him maybe we could use his parking lot or something. Or
I'm also going to give you the general manager's name. His name is Warren Burdock, Burdock. And quite honestly, Doug can handle whatever you need in terms of the cemetery, but Warren's has to make a decision on the parking.
Hey, Jim,
Okay.
Jim and Al, let me interrupt. Because we hopefully have an audience of thousands on Channel 79 listening. What we're discussing is the Darien 2020 Commission on June 12th is going to have a dedication ceremony at the gravesite of Thaddeus Bell, who is the town founder of the town of Darien. It will take place at the Slauson Cemetery, located on Hanson Road, right across from Linda Lane at the southeast border of the Weeburn Country Club. Is it what time is it, Al? 12 noon?
No,
it's
it's at 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock in the evening.
6 p.m.
Right.
And is the public at large invited and encouraged to come?
All our events are free and open to the public. Depending on what's going on with COVID, though, we may have to limit it, and there may have to be invitation only if, for example, you can only have 25 or 50 people or whatever. So it is free, it is open to the public, but depending on what's going on with COVID, attendance may be limited and you may have to have reservations. So we have to decide that.
Sometimes I just can't resist the temptation to be an Irish wise guy. The concept of outdoor venues right now, is it not X% of capacity? And since the capacity of every cemetery is very well defined.
Yeah, it is like what it is.
You should know the number.
Well, I looked on the, I'm not sure I have the most up-to-date information, but I went to the Connecticut website for COVID this morning, and
Right.
I think the latest update was in November, and things have changed quite a bit since November. So hopefully we will get an update that'll be a little more liberal as far as attendance goes on these events.
Right.
Now,
I
there's
certainly
gonna
don't want to say I have the number, but I suspect it's 25% capacity.
Yeah, that's what it was, 25%. And then you have to have a seating chart, which is 6 feet apart. So you can have like a group of 2, and then 6 feet apart, you can have a group of 4 if there are 4 in a family, and then 6 feet apart from them, a group of 3. It's pretty difficult to have a seating plan like that, unless you know who's coming in.
Think about
Right.
this, Al. We're not going to have a seating plan in the cemetery. We'll have a standing room plan. But that's a great project for the Girl Scouts or the Boy Scouts to make the map.
Yeah, definitely.
So if you want, Sue Ann's on the phone, so she's the Girl Scout contact. Sue Ann, is that something you might want to help out with?
Sure, we can definitely work together on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let's see what the restrictions are, going forward.
Wait.
So we were planning before COVID, we are planning to have a tent because there isn't a rain date, because June 12th is when we officially became the town of Darien. So we will have a 20 by 40 foot tent or something like that. And we were planning on having 50 chairs and a podium. But obviously we could scrap the chairs and just have people standing and say you have to be 6 feet apart, or we can work something out, Suzanne. But I'm really waiting for the Connecticut state guidelines to be updated.
So Al, when you say a podium, are you talking strictly for a speaker? You're not talking about a dais where people
Correct.
are going to be sitting?
Yes, absolutely. It's just for a speaker. Jamie will do a speak. The DAR is going to put a commemorative plaque on. We're planning on having the Boy Scouts come and do a presentation of the colors. We will have a fife and drum there before and after the ceremony. And we're asking all the town faith community, faith organizations to ring the bells at 6 o'clock, just to signify that it's the 201 first anniversary of the town. So that's on June 12th. But then I do have an update. The Weed Beach ceremony every year is an all-day event, and it's very, very well attended. But because of COVID, the Parks and Recreation Department worked something out with Jamie and with the police, and it's not going to be an all-day event this year. It's going to be a series of few late afternoon and early evening dinners at Weed Beach and possibly at Pear Tree, but right now I'm just talking about Weed Beach. You'll be able to either order dinner or bring your own, and there'll be tables and chairs, but also you can have blankets on the beach. Because there's COVID restrictions, you're going to have reservations, so it'll be limited to how many ever they can fit. And it's going to be on a Friday night instead of all day Saturday. So on Friday, June 4th, late afternoon, early evening, will be the first Weed Beach, whatever you want to call it, celebration. And it'll be dedicated to the bicentennial. There'll be a few of them they're planning. I don't want to say how many because I'm not part of Parks and Rec. There'll be a few of them on Friday nights. The first one is on June 4th, and the first one will be dedicated to the bicentennial. So we will be there with the whale boat. We'll have a big birthday cake float. There'll be pictures in the whale boat. We may have a cake decorating contest. There will be, at each event, there will be a band as well. So there'll be dinner on the beach or at tables and wherever. And there will be a band as well. So that's what Parks and Rec are planning. And the first event is for the bicentennial.
So nothing's gonna be done on the 5th?
Correct, nothing will be done on the 5th. I don't know if they have a rain date, to tell you the truth, but it's scheduled for Friday, late afternoon, early evening. There may be a rain date on the 5th, I don't know about that. So I think they really worked out something really good, because we'll do with all the COVID restrictions and everything, and there'll be a band there, and you'll be able to have dinner on the beach, and there'll be games and stuff as well.
Okay, what else on? Oh, by the way, Al, I don't know if Jim or John spoke with you privately about this, but can you make sure that both Warren Burdock and Doug Drugo get invitations to the ceremony at Thaddeus Bell's grave?
Right, okay,
Okay,
let me write
Thank
that down.
Susan Schultz at the time.
Yeah.
well, she'll be invited as press one way or the other.
And then the last event is on October 23rd, which is with the Museum of Darien, the First Congregational Church, and the Mather Homestead. And we're doing a recreation. We'll have the 5th Connecticut Regiment do a reenactment, I'm sorry, not a recreation, a reenactment of the kidnapping of Pastor Moses at the First Congregational Church. So they're all on board. We're talking with the ministers. And then after that, there's going to be a reenactment of a skirmish that took place at the Mather Home. And that's on Saturday, October 23rd. And that'll be an all-day event.
Starting at what time?
I think it's at 10, about 10 to 4, or 10 to 4:30 around there.
Okay.
That should be pretty good. There's about 20 reenactors, and they'll also have different stages at the museum showing the kids some of the crafts colonial crafts that were done. Some of the reenactors will be doing some of the wright smithing and all sorts of stuff.
And,
And they have a
and,
cannon firing as well as Mather Homestead, so it should be good.
And Al, that's 23rd of June?
October,
Oh,
October 23rd. Hopefully by that time, there'll be only minimal restrictions due to COVID. That's
And for
October
those-
23rd.
and
It's
for
not-
those who make it, and for those who make it up to Mather Homestead,
They're doing
go catty corner across the street and see how beautiful a 200-year-old graveyard can look. That cemetery is maintained meticulously. It looks like they have a manicurist come in there.
It's all volunteers.
No, it's privately held, and they still have the cemetery association that it's still active. They're still putting people in it. But there are people who've been there for, from 250 years ago. So it's a beautiful cemetery.
Is that the Mather? Is it affiliated with the Mather Homestead?
Yes.
Okay.
It's affiliated with the Mather family. Whether it's affiliated with the Mather Homestead, I don't know. But it is
that's
the
about
Mather family graveyard.
Okay. That's about all I have.
Okay, let's flip back now to Wartime Veteran Street Sign Program. I'm basically going to hit instant replay from last month. We are accepting applications for consideration in Wartime Veterans Street Sign Program. Applications are available on the town website and in the First Selectman's office. Nominees must have served in the military during wartime in a theater of conflict and have a demonstrable contribution to the community here in Darien as well to be considered. We are a volunteer organization. Therefore, incomplete applications cannot be processed. It is the responsibility of the applicant to provide all the necessary paperwork before we can consider an application. And I say that because sadly, we have received at least 2 applications that we cannot process, because if we don't have, in one instance, a DD 214 form that verifies the service time, we just cannot go on someone saying my dad served in the Marines. It's just, and even with a picture, we actually need the documentation from the government.
But were they told that they were infantry?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. And, we want to make that happen. So help us to help you. New business. Any other new business that anybody wants to bring up? Okay, so before I put a close on the new business, I'm just going to remind everybody that the old business is, please do your homework identifying Grand Marshal and keynote speaker candidates, because that's a decision that we have to make 4 weeks from today. Okay? So again, any other new business that anybody wants to raise? Okay, hearing no new business brought to our attention, do I hear a motion for a Carabello, which, for those who don't watch us religiously every month, is in memory of Ed Carabello, Korean War veteran, who always wanted to be the first home. So a motion to adjourn is unofficially known as a Carabello in this crowd.
I care about it.
I so
I have a
move.
Carabello from Nancy Natali. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, I can't see you raise your hand. All those
Aye.
opposed who want to stay?
Everybody raise your hand, unanimous.
Okay. Okay, I formally call the meeting to close at 4:07. Thank you all for attending, and thank you to our thousands of fans on Channel 79.
Woo.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.